Presidential candidate, Senator Bernie Sanders. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you very much.
So, Senator, we've had an ongoing conversation this morning with Howard Dean. Somebody brought up the fact that a lot of college students might have resented the fact that Hillary Clinton got paid so much money for giving paid speeches at colleges when they're fighting to pay back their loans. I want to ask you specifically, she made close to $1 million, or perhaps over $1 million, from speaking fees at colleges. Do you think it's wrong for her to go to places like UConn and also the University of Buffalo, a college she once represented, get paid $275,000 for a 45-minute speech?
Joe, I got a real problem with people, receiving, for an hour's work to earn $200,000 plus. I've got a real problem with that. But it's not just, speakers' fees. I think what we're hearing from young people is a real disgust with the campaign finance system in which billionaires and Wall Street are putting in huge sums of money. You may have read recently Secretary Clinton's super PAC raised $25 million. $15 million of that came from Wall Street. And what we're trying to do is do it in a very different way, get small individual contributions averaging $27 a piece. So I think this whole thing of money and money in politics is something the American people are deeply concerned about.
So we put a number up earlier today. Nobody around the table, from Bob Woodward to Howard Dean to Caucus Roberts, had ever seen anything like it before. It was the split of the young voters in Iowa. Bernie Sanders, 84%. Hillary Clinton, 14% in the youth vote. We couldn't explain the huge disparity, a historic disparity. Why do you think you did so well with young voters, and why do you think she's doing so poorly with young voters?
Well, Joe, I wish I could give you, a full and significant explanation. I don't have it, but this is what I'll say. Two things. Number one, by definition, young people are idealistic, and they want our country to do more in many ways than we are currently doing. They are concerned about institutional racism. They're concerned about a broken criminal justice system. They are very engaged on the issue of climate change and the need to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel. And obviously, there's the economic reason. Look, these young people, for the first time in the modern history of America, are looking at a situation where they may have a lower standard of living than their parents, while almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%. They're smart. They see that. And they want to see an economy that works for all, not just the billionaire class.
So Bill Clinton said that, you're addressing these issues by giving emotionally satisfying promises to people, echoing other claims that some of your promises are fantastical and they actually can't ever be carried out. I asked Senator Tom Harkin when we were in Iowa, what was Hillary Clinton's message? And the first thing he said to me was that she can win, and insinuating that you're unelectable. Given these claims from the opposing campaign, could you please respond? Are you electable?
Sure. Well, let me respond in two ways. Tell me why it is utopian. Tell me it is why it is impractical that the United States do what every other major country on earth is doing, guaranteeing health care to all people. We are the odd guys out. Number two, tell me why it is impractical to say that with massive wealth and income inequality, the rich and large corporations should start paying their fair share of taxes. Why is it impractical to say that when our infrastructure is crumbling, we should rebuild our infrastructure and create 13 million jobs? So I don't think these ideas are impractical. What they are is saying, to make these kinds of changes, we are going to have to stand up to Wall Street, to corporate America, to the large campaign donors who are not particularly concerned about the needs of the middle class. I think the American people are ready to do that. In terms of electability, well, let me just say two things. Number one, look at the polls. Polls go up and down, I know it. But if you compare Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton in opposition to Donald Trump, in most of the national polls, I'm doing better. In battleground states like Iowa, New Hampshire, and Wisconsin, I'm doing better. Most importantly, Democrats win when there is a large voter turnout. Republicans win when there's a low voter turnout. I believe that our campaign is creating the kind of excitement among working people, among young people, to create that large voter turnout that enables us to win up and down the line.
Senator Sanders, it's Katty Kay here. I mean, let me take the flip side of what Joe was talking about, and that's your high percentage of young voters, because in Iowa you only also got 35% of voters between the ages of 45 and 64, and you only got 29% of seniors. If you are going to win the Democratic nomination, you've got to turn those numbers around. What is your campaign going to do about that?
Well, you're absolutely right, and we are working very hard on it. And to be honest with you, while I am surprised by the kind of support we're getting from young people, I'm equally surprised by the fact that we're not getting more support from seniors. There is nobody in the Senate who has fought harder for seniors. Secretary Clinton and I disagree on a very important issue. I want to expand Social Security benefits. She doesn't, and I want to do it by lifting the cap on taxable income. I have taken on the pharmaceutical industry year after year, who are ripping off the American people, charging us the highest prices in the world, hurting many, many seniors. So we are going to focus on senior issues, and I think you'll see us do a lot better in that age category.
While we continue, just are you going to contest the Iowa results?
Well, look, we did phenomenally well in Iowa. We started 50 points behind, and last count we're about 0.2% behind. I think we have 21 national delegates from Iowa. Secretary Clinton, I think, has 22. But there were, I think, 6 precincts where, if you could believe it, it was a coin toss that decided the results. So we want to, just speak to the Iowa Democratic officials, but we're really now focusing on New Hampshire.
Were you bothered by the fact, as most reporters were on election night, that Hillary Clinton declared victory when it was a virtual tie and 20% of the vote still had not been counted?
The Clinton campaign is very heavy, Joe, into spinning things, and I'm sure they had their deep reason. They would get national attention and blah, 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 blah. The end of, you could talk about who won or who lost, but when we came from so far down, taking on the most powerful political machine in the Democratic Party, I think we did pretty well, and I think most Americans recognize that.
There is a growing spin out there that yesterday Esquire condemned, that some people that are supporting Hillary Clinton are engaging in almost fear-mongering and red-baiting, suggesting that a Bernie Sanders victory is a victory for a socialist revolution. A lot of over-the-top rhetoric that Hillary Clinton herself is embracing. Would you like to address that?
I would, Joe. I think people understand that when I talk about democratic socialism, we're talking about building on some fantastic programs that are so important to the American people. Social Security, guess what? It's a socialist program. Medicare is a single-payer health care system for the seniors. I think it should be expanded to all people. You got the post office, a great socialist institution, the Veterans Administration. What I believe is that government does have an intrinsically important role to play to make sure that all of our kids, regardless of their education, regardless of the income of their families, get the education they need. And that's why I believe that public colleges and universities should be tuition free. I believe that in the United States we should join the rest of the industrialized world and have a guaranteed paid family and medical leave. These are not such radical ideas, and I think if there are folks out there trying to scare the American people, that's unfortunate. And the other thing that I do believe, Joe, and you know this, you've heard me say it a million times, at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, when the 20 wealthiest people in this country own more wealth than the bottom 50% of our people, you know what? I do believe the wealthy and large corporations should start paying their fair share of taxes.
And so I want to ask you also to define, when you talk about a revolution, define a revolution, because, of course, everybody does this. We've been talking about the Reagan Revolution for 40 years, and nobody suggested that Republicans were going to have tanks roll down Pennsylvania Avenue. We talked about the Gingrich Revolution in 1994, when it may have seemed for some Democrats like tanks were about to roll down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah, I was one of them. Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I was there with you. Right. You were like running for you said, "Where's the fallout shelter?" But I'm concerned that people are taking your words when you talk about a revolution when you're obviously talking about a peaceful political
Of course.
revolution? And they're twisting and distorting those words to suggest that you were somehow a commie. And I'm talking
That's
about
right.
Democrats saying this.
Joe,
And
I think you're right.
Talk about
and
what
thank
you
you.
mean when you say revolution.
Good. This is what I mean, Joe. And you're absolutely right, and there are people who are doing that, and I think that is pretty pathetic. What do I mean by revolution? I will tell you. Political revolution. That is in the last election that we had in November 2014. Do you know what? 63% of the American people didn't vote. 80% of young people didn't vote. To my mind, what a political revolution means is a revitalization of American democracy. You know what I think? I want to see America have one of the highest voting turnouts of any major country on earth, not one of the lowest voting turnouts. And I think I want to see people get involved in the political process, be thinking about the important issues, debating the important issues. I want political consciousness to go up, because I believe when that happens, when young people and working people become involved in the political process, it will not just be billionaires and wealthy campaign contributors who determine what's happening in Washington. That's the thrust of everything that I'm talking about. That's the political revolution, Joe.
You mentioned the word debate. People need to be debating the issues. Are you going to be participating in a debate with Hillary Clinton tomorrow night?
The answer is yes. And you know that I have always wanted more debates, and Secretary Clinton in the beginning was not so interested in more debates. Now suddenly they're very interested in more debates. What I wanted to see is, on top of New Hampshire, 3 more debates. We were talking about California and Michigan, and I wanted New York City. Secretary Clinton represented New York 7 years in the Senate. I thought it'd be a good idea. For some reason, she's not interested in debating in New York.
So why are they suddenly interested in more debates? You said that with a little sly smile.
Well, golly gee, I don't know. It may have it may have something to do with the fact that the nature of this campaign has changed a little bit, and now they're getting a little bit nervous. But it was interesting, as you'll recall, way back when DNC said 6 debates, we had no input into that. Secretary Clinton said, hey, that's great, that's fine. Now they want more debates. That's fine. I love debates.
All right. Bernie, it's always great talking to you.
Senator Bernie Sanders, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot. Still ahead this hour, our conversation